Well, certainly the coronavirus has had a wide-ranging impact, business, the people, and much other. But now cities across America must try and figure out how to build back from this economic disaster. So many businesses shut down and may never reopen. Cities with wage taxes may very well have to give it back to those who have been working from home. This is a wound that most likely is going to take many years to heal from. And it's great to have back with us on the show former Philadelphia Mayor and of course, Penn graduate Michael Nutter to discuss what is next.
Well,
Mr. Mayor, great to have you back with us.
Dan, thank you. Thanks for having me. And there's probably not much more of a timely topic than this particular one.
You know, it is interesting because here we are, we're 11 or 12 months into this at some point, and it feels like we are still several months away
Yeah.
from getting any offices back to normal.
Yeah. I think that, as Vice President, well, he is now the president. I've been calling him vice president for so long. President Biden and Vice President Harris have made it very, very clear that job one, job two, and job three is dealing with COVID-19, the coronavirus. And the key, there's no brilliance here, but we've got to get folks tested, vaccinated, kids back to school, K to 12, college and universities, and eventually many people back to their offices. I think, we talk of course, the great Wharton School, and I know many professors, I'm sure, are looking at this. One of the issues, and we'll get into cities and money and all that, but one of the real issues here is what will be the longer lasting impact of COVID-19 on the future of work, how we work, where we work, what work we do, and of course, who does it. And so, I have been wondering, I don't have an answer yet, but I have been wondering what things that we've adjusted to and acclimated ourselves to during COVID-19 that when this devastating part of it is over, or mostly over, and things get back to some semblance of what we used to do pre-COVID, what things will remain? How many people will actually be required, or needed, rather, not required, but needed to actually be in the office? How many folks are going to opt, if given the option, to continue to work from home? How much will we continue to utilize these a platform like Zoom or others to conduct business? Other than the supermarket, the pharmacy, building material supply, I'm not trying to give free advertising, building material supply stores. I haven't been, and takeout from any number of restaurants trying to support our restaurant industry here. I haven't been anywhere since March 13th. Yet, I continue to teach my class. I continue to work on my fellowship at Penn, continue to work with private clients and nonprofit organizations, et cetera, all from either this room, my basement, the living room, depending on what day it is, and fighting for space here in my own household because everybody's busy. Life is going on.
Yeah. Well, I think it's amazing, and it's great to have you because of your experience running the city of Philadelphia to take a look at the overall impact. And when you think about what the normal services are that a city would provide, how they've been impacted in the last 11 months by the pandemic, but how they very, very well may be impacted moving forward because of the lasting impact.
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, the city, of course, rightly tried to send as many people, especially, March, April, May, tried to send as many people who could work remotely, send them home or, wherever they could go. On the other hand, so many public employees have very citizen, customer facing jobs. First responders. So police, fire, emergency services, sanitation, health, any number of departments and agencies. I mean, you can't really do that work from home, right? So they're out there, many of whom unfortunately did get sick. SEPTA, a number of agencies, excuse me, there was virtually no escaping for those folks. And certainly as testing and vaccines continue to roll out, they have to get the priority for themselves and their families. When you talk about wage taxes, business taxes, I mean, 08, 9, 10, 11, when I was in office, I mean, that was pretty bad. It was considered the worst recession since the Great Depression. But people were not dying. The government didn't close businesses and shut them down. And as you said on your intro, unfortunately, some of those just will not come back. Hospitality and tourism, restaurant and retail, I mean, are significant components of the Philadelphia economy. And so for months, people were, I mean, it was, again, right decision, but for months, people were in lockdown situations. Literally, businesses had to close. And then in many instances, some may not be able to return. And so those tax dollars, you don't make up for those tax dollars at a later point in time. It's not like, well, we're going to put everything on hold and then a year later, there's nothing to collect because they had no business, right? So this is where, of course, the federal government, and unfortunately, without naming names, but just during that 17 to 21 timeframe, and really 2020, the showing up of the federal government is so critically important to cities and towns and counties and states, and they just didn't have the kind of support and the machinations in Congress and the election, civil unrest, and protests. You put all that together, American society and certainly Philly have been impacted significantly.
Well, and I think to throw it, one level above that is, and you probably saw this when you were in office in Philadelphia, but it goes to, cities across the United States, is the fact that over the last decade or so, we had seen so many millennials move into cities and want to live in cities.
Yeah.
And now during this pandemic, they have decided to move out of cities.
Yeah.
And they may be at an age where they're saying, okay, I'm moving out, but I wanted to start a family anyway. So I'm going to live in the suburbs and buy a house and live out there.
Well, it was, we increased our millennial population during my time. On a per capita basis, we had the highest percentage increase of millennial population of any major city in the United States of America. Great. The thing about millennials is that they have significant mobility, right? They can decide to be in a place and then they can decide to be in another place. And so for many, either the city shutting down or the density in our population, and this was not just a Philadelphia phenomenon, we saw this across the country, many went back home, wherever home is, and kind of locked down there. I know many of my students at Columbia left and had apartments still in New York City that they were paying for, right? But now they're with mom and dad, or they're with brother and sister or something like that, and then have to figure out what are those arrangements? Let the lease run out, appropriately break the lease or whatever the case may be. So we'll know, I guess, in a year or so with the American demographic survey that comes out, what the impact has been on population. But they're also good, they're good earners and they're participants, and they brought a lot of life to and animated the streets of our city and our businesses. So I think that the fallout from the 2020 coronavirus pandemic will be with us for some time. Many industries hurt and damaged, city government and its services. And so, which of course leads to the question of, how do you budget and how do you make critical, budgetary decisions? I think everything's got to be on the table, and not just Philadelphia, but all the cities. You really have to reevaluate, what are we doing? What services are we providing? Should we be providing them? Should someone else be providing them? And how do you save money? And still waiting to see any kind of significant relief from the federal government.
So then is this an opportunity, and I've used this word so many times in the last 11 months, and I'm sure you've used it as well, is this a time for cities to pivot and think about what they want to be for the next 20, 30, 50 years?
Well, I think you have to. You can't escape it when you have this level of crisis at your doorstep. First rule is don't run out of money. Along with that, you have to maintain a certain level of service. I mean, people do understand that it's a pandemic, but when they put, it's a perfect example today. Monday has been my trash day for the last 40 some odd years. No matter who was the mayor, no matter what was going on. And, and I appreciate our sanitation folks, and, whether it's 5 degrees outside or 95 degrees outside, they're out there doing the work. And so citizens do expect that their trash is going to get picked up, that street lights are going to work, that, we just had, a storm, that the snow is going to get moved. If there's a severe weather event, that so the government still has to operate. Yeah. And you have people, and 60-65% of the overall budget is on personnel, right? So it is the critical moment where I think cities have to completely reevaluate not only what are we doing today and why are we doing it, but what is our 5, 10, 15, and maybe upwards of 20-year plan? And I think some reorientation of what a city is about. And if we could, at least during the Biden-Harris presidency, reconnect our cities to the federal government. I used to tease I was, even though it was an economic crisis, the Great Recession, 7 of my 8 years as mayor, I served with President Barack Obama and Vice President Biden, right? And so they cared about what happened in cities, and they were on the phone all the time, and every cabinet secretary trying to figure out, how do we lift these cities up? How do we get Americans, back into the economy, educate our kids, and make sure that our seniors, can live their lives in some kind of peace. And so that connection, I think, was broken during the last administration, and I know that the Biden-Harris team wants to reconnect.
What's your, and I hate to say takeaway, but with everything that has been so negative with this pandemic over the last year, what's your takeaway from all of this, looking at it from a government standpoint?
I think you can't escape, and I saw this certainly during our time, but it's even more so now, the resilience of our folks. And it's not just, Americans in general, but, I just love Philadelphians. It's a tough town with some tough people, but, when tough times come, Philadelphians band together. There are so many positive stories of people looking after each other and just, being good folks. And so, we've learned a great deal, certainly about ourselves. We've learned about other people, but this town just has, it's appropriate. One of our mascots, of course, is called Gritty. It's a gritty town. There's resilience here. And I just have great faith in Philadelphians that we've been an important city since we've been a city. Since before we had a country, right? Folks could have gone at least 12 other places, right, to have the Declaration of Independence. They chose Philadelphia. They could have gone to 12 other places to develop the Constitution. They chose Philly. And so we have made and remade ourselves over the last 400 some odd years, and we will continue to do that. And it's, the great institutions of, Penn and Wharton and so many, many others in our city, in our suburbs, in this region that give me faith and hope for the future. We've got 400,000 plus young people who get an education in our region, and they're constantly showing amazing traits and qualities. And so, even in these tough times, I am still bullish and optimistic on the future, but this is a tough one. This is a tough one.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to seeing you back on campus at some point in our studio
I,
at some point later this year.
so do I. So do I. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank
All
you.
right.
Former Philadelphia Mayor Michael Nutter, who, as you can see on the video, or for those of you listening to us on the radio, is a very proud University of Pennsylvania graduate.